Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well. I figured I would finally put together a video on how I got my 12th gen mirror upgrade to work with the Puddle lights. Everyone always asks, how do you get the Puddle lights to work on these trucks? Well, I figured I would finally make a video showing how I chose to do it. The way that I did it is not the way that you have to do it. To me, though, it is going to be as close to doing it as OEM as possible. I used a repair harness, I used looming, I made sure everything was soldered and wrapped, and I'm very proud of how it came out, and everything works as it should. I will just let you know this is focused only on the Puddle lights. I'm sure you can apply the same basic concept to wiring in any other thing, especially the turn signals, which is usually the other thing that most people want. But my truck, even though it didn't have them from the factory, all the wiring was already in my truck because mine was a custom ordered XLT and it had quite a bit of stuff already there that just didn't really have set up, I guess is probably the way to put it. So they plugged in, the directionals worked, and I didn't need to change it. So this is just on the Puddle lights, so stick around and I hope you get something out of this. Let's get into it. Alright, so to get into the wiring of how this goes, it's pretty straightforward. It's just there's a few nuances and differences you need to keep in mind depending on the year. I'm doing my best to recount. Obviously, do your own research on this, do it at your own risk. But from what I recall, any of these F-150s that were pre-2007 in the 11th gen, so 04 to 06, we have a different factory mirror pinout than 07 and later. And from what I remember, 07 all the way through 2014 should be the same or close for that group. So if you have, like in my case in 04, there are some things you needed to change so that those 12th gen mirrors work. And same if you were putting on those towing mirrors, like factory towing mirrors that came out in like 07 or 08, you needed to change pins on your 04 to 06 to match that and make sure it worked. So from what I recall, we have two grounds pre-07. And we need to take one of those grounds. I've seen people take it out. There's one ground that people take out. I think I left mine. I don't remember cutting anything, and everything still worked. And I took the pin 9 ground on my truck. I had to move it over to pin 8 to match these new mirrors. And then you also need to remember, if your truck was not wired for Puddle lights, you need to add a wire to your harness so that you can connect to those Puddle lights on the mirror, right? So what I did was I picked up a Ford repair harness. This is a truck side repair harness. So this is literally a replacement plug for your truck that the mirror would plug into. Well, I saw this posted online. It comes in a bag. It comes with a bunch of heat shrink tubing, which is pretty awesome. And what they did, this is a great idea, they de-pinned the wires they needed, so they had a factory wire that they could now plug into their truck's mirror plug. And so on mine, I was already wired for turn signals. Even though I didn't have turn signal mirrors from the factory, my truck has a lot of custom options because it was a custom ordered truck. It just didn't have the mirrors. So some trucks are going to have the mirrors, directionals. If you don't, you could do the same thing. But I was able to de-pin this harness and add into pin 11, which I believe is the dome light circuit for those mirrors. It's a switched interior power or something like that. That's the one that you need to add. I think it's pin 11 to your truck if you don't have it. So that is going to be how you get the dome light to turn on your Puddle light. So this is called part number WPT 998. That's the route I went. It's a great way to go. And then what I did was I picked up some 18 gauge wire, and I also picked up some 1/4 inch expandable sleeving, so do a nice job I did with looming. And I also made sure I picked up some wire loom tape. And what I did was I ran the wiring from the mirror into the kick panel, and I went through the door, the whole thing, following the factory harness. It's a bit of work, it takes time, but I'm glad I did it that way. Inside the kick panel, you need to make sure you find the correct wire. Now that wire in my truck, and from what I can find even through 2014, it is a thin black with a light blue stripe wire. There is a thick version of this that is not the one you want. And there's also an identical thin black wire with a light blue stripe in the passenger side kick panel. You don't want that. You need to run a wire from that driver's side kick panel with that correct wire. I'd encourage you to check it with a multimeter. You can look up how to do that, and you run it to your driver's side, but you also need to run it to the passenger side. So I routed that nicely under the dash in wire loom, same kind of deal. And I brought it over to there through the near the fuse box area where the harness comes in and up through the door. And so that is what you're connecting to. It's a thin black with a light blue stripe. Test it to make sure it has power only when you unlock the doors and the dome lights kick on. And that is what I connected to. You're kind of, at your own kind of will of how you want to do it. I, like I said, used looming. I think I did a really nice job on this. It's like an OEM quality. Everything was wrapped, heat shrinked. I soldered my connections. I made sure they were wrapped with electrical tape because you can't heat shrink that T connection you're doing. I didn't use any butt connectors, none of that. And everything, I mean, it looks great. I'm really proud of how it came out. And that's really how you're going to do it, is you need to connect to that thin black with light blue striped wire and then run it to each mirror, and making sure that you swap whatever pins around depending on your year of your truck. You may or you may not have to. And then you're going to need to ensure that you add the correct wire. I'd recommend going with this repair harness so that you're able to just easily add that pin where it needs to go on pin 11 for the dome light, and you should be in business. Again, doing it however you want, but that's how I did it. And I'm really happy with how it came out. I think it's a cool option to add. It's one of those that, like, it just makes those trucks feel so modern. And the 12th gen mirrors, honestly, are such a nice upgrade. They just look so much better. And it's funny because they're just stupid mirrors, but between the painted caps, but also the contours and the way that 12th gen mirror was designed with some of the ridges and all that stuff, it just looks so much more modern on these trucks, and I'm so glad I did it. So I hope that helps. I hope that kind of explains the mystery around that. I think it's a pretty helpful guide to kind of give you an overview of what to look for. And I'll be curious kind of how many of you guys tackle it. I know it's one of those things that a lot of people want to do, but a lot of people like myself get scared of wiring. But hey, I did it. I did a nice job, and you can too. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it very much. We'll talk to you in the next one. Take care.